Welcome back to Women in Wild Places. I'm your host, Gabriella. Today I'm talking with my friend Jess Parks, who has rode the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon 14 times and now calls Juneau, Alaska home. Jess and I first met on a cancellation permit trip in 2023 where I won the lottery. We're internet strangers who signed on for 18 days together on the river, and the rest is history. In this conversation, Jess shares how she went from rowing crew in New York City to guiding Whitewater in Colorado, finding her way up north to Alaska and falling in love with big water, big canyons, and community. We talk about the intensity of running rapids, the balance of risk and reward, the tiny moments of awe that keep you coming back, and what it means to mentor and inspire other women at the oars. Ever dreamed of running the Grand Canyon, changing your life for a big adventure, or just getting a little closer to wild water? This one's for you. Jess, thank you for joining me today. Jess Parks, my friend that was on the Colorado River with me in, gosh, was that 2023? 2 years ago already. Almost exactly. Would you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Sure. I'm Jess Parks. I'm here in Juneau, Alaska today, where winter is starting to set in. We met in the Grand Canyon in 2023. That's actually the last Grand Canyon trip that I was on. So I've been thinking back on that trip as our weather is turning to crap and thinking, I could be in the canyon right now. I bet it's pretty nice down there.
I'll give the audience a little bit of background. I pulled a permit for the Grand Canyon. It was actually a couple of weeks after we got home from Denali. I got the email. I was very shocked because it's not easy to get. And I had gotten a cancellation permit, meaning we only had a couple months to get the trip together. I knew we really wanted to do this, but I wasn't quite sure how because a lot of the folks that we originally had on the docket for the trip, it was just too short of notice. And I knew we definitely needed some experienced boaters on the trip. Cut to Facebook group, and I never forget the name of this. It's Grand Canyon River Trip Participants Needed. It's such a mouthful. And we were once internet strangers.
So,
Then we went on a rafting trip together.
yeah, I remember you had a username that's not your actual name. And so we were talking on the phone before. You were like, well, my real name is. I feel like that's important for me to know before I go on a long rafting trip with you. Yep.
It was like a blind date, but for 18 days. So you have been on the Grand Canyon how many times?
I've been 14 times. I went 14 years
Wow.
in a row.
How did you get into rafting in the first place?
Well, I was going to college in New York City and I was out on the river every day rowing crew. I had started doing that in high school, but I hadn't had any kind of exposure to outdoorsy stuff. I did a lot of things outdoors, but I had never really been camping. All my jobs had been indoor jobs. And partway through college, I went on a cross country road trip with some of my friends and saw the American West for the first time. Had an amazing trip, was so inspired by the scenery and everything I saw. Then I got back to New York City and reported to work and was just it was just so depressing. I hated it so much that I swore at that time that I would never work indoors again another day of my life. That year, I decided the next summer that I was going to work outside, whatever it took. And so I started cold calling rafting companies. After I researched a bunch of jobs, I thought, well, I could learn how to sail, I could teach sailing, I could be a sea kayaking guide. I just knew I loved the water and was set on being outdoors. I found a rafting company in Durango, Colorado that had a short guide school, and they said that that was their pool of people that they hired from. So if you went to their guide school and did well, they'd hire you. So showed up. It was my first time ever whitewater rafting and my first time camping. We did a 5-day trip on the Dolores River. I was so far out of my depth and scared, but I was hooked. It was awesome.
I was gonna ask you what that transition was like going from not really having been an outdoorsy kid to getting launched into guide training. What was that like? Did it feel kind of natural in some ways, or was it like you just had to drink from a fire hose?
I don't remember it feeling natural. I actually don't remember much at all other than being overwhelmed and loving the scenery and the sun on my skin and not being in a high-rise building, the people I was meeting, and just the feeling of rowing down the river, just sort of the interactive nature of it all, like moving a boat with your own muscle power through water at the same time that the water itself is moving. So
And did you continue back with that company, or how did it change your trajectory?
that was a one summer thing. And after that, I wanted to see some more places, and I ended up getting a job that was pretty unrelated to rafting. After that summer at Durango River Trippers, I decided that I was going to pursue a career in outdoor education, and not at all what I've ended up doing in real life. Did a whole bunch of reading, and I attended some outward bound courses and then did an instructor in training class with them, then got hired on with them up in the boundary waters canoeing. I was like, it's water based, great. Although I did end up really missing the whitewater. It never really clicked for me that summer, and realized that I wanted something less transient. And so I came back to Juneau, where I had actually river guided also here and there. I moved to Juneau and got a second college degree in environmental science so that I could do work that was connected with the outdoors, but have a home base and a community and be able to go on day trip adventures and still be in touch with my people and have some creature comforts.
You get the best of both worlds. That's a big transition to go from mostly being on the East Coast or in cities and then starting to raft and then you end up in Alaska. Did you ever expect that that would
No.
happen?
No, I remember when I was a kid, my sister commenting that she wanted to visit Alaska someday, and in my head thinking, "Why?" And now we both live here on the same street, but yeah, I just shrugged it off. I wanted to be somewhere warm, but I got so hooked on mountain scenery that Alaska is just a perfect fit. There's so many day trips right out of Juneau that you can do where you're just in world-class scenery. You know, you've been here, and then you come home and you crawl into a warm bed.
Going back to you saying it didn't quite click being in the boundary waters because you missed the whitewater. What about the whitewater? Is what do you like about it and what's the sensory experience for you when you're running rapids? What does that feel like?
When I'm running rapids, I just love how it occupies every single part of your attention. Coming into the big ones, especially ones that I've stopped to scout, so much adrenaline. As I'm floating in, I can feel my heart racing. You're aware of your whole body, almost uncomfortably so. I know I've been floating into rapids and just taken a minute to pause and be like, "Whew, that's the real stuff. That's actual adrenaline." Like that's, but then there's this pause right before you're already committed. And a lot of the big rapids in the Grand Canyon, you hit these smooth, glassy waves right as you're dropping into the rapid. And if the water's clear, you can see through them a little ways, see the rocks just flying by underneath you. And then you're on your oars trying to keep it straight or make a move where you want to go, seeing if things are like you expected from the scout or if you're having to respond in the minute. And just pushing with your legs and your back and your arms, getting your whole body into it, having to keep an eye upstream, downstream, trying to be peripherally aware of the other boaters around you just in case they need help or if they're getting too close or something. Everything else falls away. You're just in that exact moment, mind and body, totally engaged with the water. It's so dynamic. I'm totally hooked on it.
It just demands the attention of all of your senses, so you can't be thinking about anything else, like
No,
replaying a moment in time, thinking about what you're gonna do tomorrow. You
not
are
even a
right
little bit.
there. You're
Yeah.
right there in the moment. It's a true meditation.
It is, and the more I do it, I do love taking that second when you're dropping into a rapid on those smooth, glassy waves at the beginning. In the Grand Canyon, especially the big pool and drop rapids, there is this moment where you drop in, and there's nothing quite like those waves. The more of these rapids I run, the more I anticipate that little, I mean, it's so short right before you drop in, and then it's sort of like some managed chaos taking a beat to just relish that sensation. It's really cool.
I know you have a million memories of rapids, but can you just give a snippet to the audience of a specific memory you have that you loved going through a rapid?
You know, the more memorable ones are, of course, ones where things didn't necessarily go exactly to plan. I remember just on my first time rowing the canyon in 2011, it was the first time I was in charge of my own raft and running Granite Rapid, which is right below Phantom Ranch. You're starting to get into the really big stuff. And Granite Rapid is so cool. It's really hard to see the entrance, but The ideal spot is on this ridge line where there's big lateral waves coming off of a cliff on river right, and then there's kind of some chaotic holes on river left. And if you can hit that sweet spot, angle towards the lateral waves coming off of the cliff, it's like hopping on a freight train, just this jet of current, and you get going so fast. And you have to be constantly making these little adjustments to hit the wave straight. And because the waves are rebounding off the cliff, it can be kind of unpredictable. So there's lots of little adjustments and then just pushing forward into those waves, and it feels like you're flying. And then it's done, and you're down in an eddy below it, and it's pretty exhilarating. The first time I did that, it was really high water, probably the highest water I've ever run it at. And I was very inexperienced at running big water. I lost an oar, came really close to the wall, but it was totally thrilling. I look back now and it was just on the edge of control. Like we could have flipped in any one of those hits that we took. And it's one of those things now where I'm almost scared to look back on it like, oh man, that was a terrible run. We're so lucky we didn't flip. But in the moment, just thinking, this is amazing. We made it. That was awesome. I want to come back and do that again. That's that was an intense ride.
Yeah, the reflection brings you a different way sometimes of looking at it. How do you see the balance between risk and reward in a setting like this?
I think a lot of the risks are mitigated. There's a lot of steps you can take, and by taking them, I feel like it makes the reward worth taking the risk. So stuff like having good equipment, having done swiftwater rescue training, checking your gear, wearing a PFD, wearing a helmet, having other boats with you, running close together, having people have your back, all of that kind of risk management, I think gives me enough confidence to go in and really push it, just knowing that I've done what I can to prepare. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but that I have my ducks marginally in a row. And then if something's off for me that day, then there's a team around me to back me up.
So just going back to you've been on the Grand Canyon 14 times. What inspired you to do it in the first place, and how did you get on your first trip?
So after I had moved to Juneau, there wasn't much to do in the way of whitewater rafting. We do have a small river here that has maybe some class two, depending on the water level, rapids. But I was thinking back to rafting in Colorado. I'd done a little bit of rafting just as a passenger, like on guided trips in Maine, and just thinking, oh, I want to get it back out there. Traveled around the national parks and stuff in the West. I had thought, like, okay, the Grand Canyon be this multi-day trip, just epic. I'm going to start saving my money now. And so maybe for my 40th birthday, I can go on a guided trip and do the full 18-day trip. That'll be a dream. And so I started saving money. I was pretty young. I hadn't started saving for retirement yet, even, but I was putting an automatic amount each month from my paycheck, not very much, into an account for Grand Canyon. And I was working as a hiking guide, just part time. I was a student with 3 or 4 different part time jobs at the time, and just a little 2 hour hike. And there was a couple on my trip in my group. And they were telling me about how their son used to be a rafting guide and that he still goes rafting on private trips and that he was going to do the Grand Canyon the coming winter. I started telling them how it was my dream to go and that I was saving money for someday. And they said, it's a private trip. Maybe there'll be space. Why don't you give us your email and we'll forward it on to our son and see if there's space. And so I wrote down my email address, gave it to them, promptly forgot about it. And then months later, I got an email from this guy, John, who I had met his parents once for 2 hours saying, hey, we have a Grand Canyon trip. It's launching February 24th in 2010. Would you like to come? And I thought about it for a while. I checked with my friends, and the answer is obviously yes. I had pictured going on a guided trip. Everything would be safe, professionals running the show. And instead, it was a group of complete strangers in the middle of the winter, 28-day trip. It just seemed like such an adventure, such an opportunity. And so I said, okay. And within a week of me committing to this trip, I got a job offer. The first job I had working at the state of Alaska. And they called me with the offer and said, well, we'd love to have you. Are you still interested? And I said, yes, very interested. But I told them I had this river trip I just committed to. I think the trip was 2 months after my start date, but turned out that my boss in the state job had a raft, was into rafting. He was like, "Oh yeah, obviously you have to go on that trip." I was just looking back at the journal I kept on that trip, and on day 10, I put something down about how I had tried rowing somebody's raft that day. Because I was a passenger, I was just clinging to the front of a 12-foot bucket boat in the cold for the first 9 days of that trip, and then on day 10, I got in somebody else's raft and got on the oars. Yeah, I'd written something in my journal about, "Hey, maybe someday, I wonder what this would be like rowing my own raft if I could do it." And I was like, "This year, I'm really glad not to have the stress or the responsibility. Rigging and de-rigging looks really hard, but," and then it's like dot, dot, dot in my journal. And there was this guy on that trip who took me under his wing almost right away. This guy, Big Ron, we called him Ron Sundberg, 6'7", and just kind of looked out for me. His son was on that trip and kind of close in age to me. He said, "Well, hey, next year, my friend Susan has a permit, and I'm gonna go, and she'll probably need a rower. What do you think?" And I was like, "Ron, I've never done that before." And he's like, "You're ready. You can do it." And, yeah, he managed to score me an invitation on my friend Susan's trip in 2010. I really clicked with some people in that group. And once you get networked in, if you make it a priority to have enough money saved up and the free time available to go on these trips, like you can find your way onto the river. And so after that, I've just been finding my way back.
You've been hooked. So you've been on the river many times. When you reflect back on all these different trips, what is that like for you? What kind of thoughts go through your head?
Kind of a jumble of memories. A lot of it is thinking of the scenery and the whitewater. I mean, I could sit and watch the river all day, and watch the way that the light moves around on the canyon walls, or the clouds and the storms. All of that is first of mind for me. And then just the cast of characters that I've met. When we get together, we tell funny stories about some of the other cast of characters we've been down the river with. So that's the other thing that comes up, is just you end up with these stories, just funny stuff, misadventures. The group dynamics are fascinating on these trips. Each trip is like a lifetime in miniature. Everybody there has, their own plot line and struggles. Like we all have high points and low points on those trips, and sometimes there's obvious reasons why people are struggling and sometimes not. Kind of like how I leave each trip with a little bit of fresh wisdom and some fun new
Hmm.
stories. Like, well, I won't ever do that again. In life, I feel like you don't have such concrete and discrete lessons like that you can build on. I write stuff down.
Just to paint a picture for those that haven't been on this trip, it's a multi-day trip ranging from 18 days to 29 in the winter.
28 is,
20
I think, the standard winter trip.
So 18 to 28 days, you're with one group of people. You can switch some people out at a midway-ish point at Phantom Ranch, but other than that, there's no cell phone service. All you have are your boats, your gear, your food, and each other. And you moved over some miles each day and camp. So it's a very nomadic kind of lifestyle. And while it's a short period of time, it's a very intense period of time. Like you said, it's its own world.
It doesn't feel
And
short at the time, does it?
no,
Like, it feels
it
like it's gonna go on
feels,
forever. Like, this is life now.
and when so much happens in such a short time, and the days are very long, so much happens in a day between all of the extra effort it takes anytime you're camping to set things up
Ugh,
and the system of the group and how
it's a
the
lot
group
of
is
work.
is working and whatever's happening in the natural world, what the weather's doing, the winds, the river, what the dynamics are between people. There's so much that's happening. So it's a very unique experience that is unlike any other. It's even different than a backpacking trip because it's like you're in your own little city and you have to work together. And of course,
Yeah.
there's foibles along the way.
It's gear intensive, and it is a really
Yeah,
challenging environment. Like, at some point in every trip, you're really hot, you're really cold, you're tired, you have sand in your eyes, your fingertips are cracking, you're
right.
frustrated with somebody in your group for who knows what. You're worried about a rapid coming up later in the day or grumpy about who knows what. But man, then you get the like moonlight coming up on the canyon walls
Mm,
across the way or the Milky
mm,
Way silhouetting canyon
yeah.
walls at night. And there's so many moments of awe mixed in there. That's part of what makes it feel like those trips last so long, too. You have those moments that stop you dead in your tracks and snap you right out of that kind of routine, even if it's a new routine, like wake up, drink coffee, pack boats. And then it's like, look at the little Colorado River and how blue it is, and have your mind totally blown. And then back
Yeah.
to make sure your straps are strapped down and your life jacket's buckled. There's nothing else like it.
Something I really like about an experience like this is the fact that you're so removed from your daily life and you don't have the typical distractions that you normally have. So you have no choice but to be fully immersed in it and
Yeah,
to you have the time. The reason you're there is to enjoy this magical place that not everybody gets to see. I mean, even seeing the Grand Canyon from the rim, many people might not be able to do that, but to be deep inside the canyon all the way at the bottom and to see all of the side canyons that have their own personality, the wildlife, the way the river changes every single day, it's a really special experience. It's very easy to get
definitely.
hooked. It's
Yeah,
very easy
and
to get hooked.
like you were just saying too, the outside responsibilities and distractions or your own comfort zone to fall back on, you do end up connecting with the people you're with. Not everybody, but you make connections down there. You have time to talk. You have shared missions you have to accomplish and time, day after day you go through hard stuff together, you celebrate together, geek out about the same amazing things together. I've definitely made some of my closest friends down there who I do river trips with multiple times or who I've gotten together with off the river. It's even people who I've only done one trip with. I'll meet up with them years later sometime, and it's kind of like getting together with my cousins or people who you don't
Mm.
see very often, but there's just like this bedrock bond that is like this instant comfort zone, a connection that you can transfer settings and it's there no matter how long it's been.
You pick up right where you left off. Those are really special relationships. I have this one memory, Jess, of you. We just got to Redwall Cavern, which is a must see if you're rafting. I just remember pulling up to it, going around that bend, and just this massive natural amphitheater and being awestruck by how it looked. And we all went deep inside. As far as you could go, we were on the inside looking out at the river and you were playing guitar and it was echoing. It just sounded so beautiful in the cavern. And we were playing frisbee and everyone was just having a great time. And I remembered listening to you playing guitar and just feeling like these are the moments in life that I want to have. It's
Yes.
number one kind of highlight moment and those kind of things just really stick with you.
It's so great to be in a moment like that and know that you're having a moment like that, to feel it as it's happening and then, yeah, have those memories later. Those, well, if this isn't nice, I don't know what is. I think that's a Kurt Vonnegut thing. That's something I take with me off the river too, is to try to catch myself having those moments where you're like, I'm perfectly content. This is exactly where I want to be. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing right now. You get a lot of those moments on the Grand Canyon. Yeah, it teaches you to recognize them when you have it, and you relive those memories later.
I've had a lot of people ask me over the years, like, how do you make time for these trips, different things that I've done? And, oh, I would love to do that, but I can't because of X, Y, Z. Not to discount the very valid reasons that people might not be able to do something like this because I understand there's a lot of privilege that comes along with it. There's a lot of planning, financial, time, and otherwise. But if you could give a piece of advice to someone who is really interested in something like this, whether it's the Grand Canyon or just going out on a more extended raft trip, what would you say?
Well, if I hadn't had that dream and started saving money back before my first trip, I wouldn't have been able to go. So, yeah, start putting away just a tiny bit of money, especially if money is an issue. I've found on these Grand Canyon trips, it's usually either you just can't afford it or you can't be away from your responsibilities,
Mhm.
or you just don't feel like you have the skills to do it. And I would say you can start saving money. Most people can put away just a little, and the private trips are more affordable than you would think. You can do 28
They
days on the
are.
Grand Canyon for way less than a week in Hawaii, and it's worth it if you break it down like on a per day cost. I think it's surprisingly affordable if you go on a private trip. As far as the skills part, you just have to have a sense of adventure. Maybe do a lot of research on what gear to bring so that you can be comfortable enough, like have your basic needs and safety needs met. To get out there 14 times, I have really had to make it a priority where have passed up other opportunities. One of the things about the job that I have is that it doesn't pay as high as maybe some things in the private sector, but there is good time off that I can take. Like I can get away from my job for that amount of time. And so not everybody has that, but there are ways to get out there. Like you can do a trip where you hike in or out at Phantom Ranch, and it's definitely worth it if you have any interest. I've met some people down there who haven't been whitewater rafting before. There was a person on a trip who didn't know that there was whitewater on the Grand Canyon. I would recommend being a little more prepared than she was for that trip, but anybody could do it.
Yeah, engineering your lifestyle. I like it. But speaking of skills, so with me getting the permit, my history was more in kayaking, sea and whitewater kayaking. So the rafting aspect, while I had been more of a passenger, I'd rode a little bit more on, class one. It wasn't like the Colorado, which is why it was important to me to find people that I knew had that experience to help compose the trip appropriately so that we had a good team, we were safe, and I thought it would be good to have a mix of people that had never been and people that knew it very well. So,
Definitely.
going back to how we met was just better than I could have ever hoped it would be, and I'm really glad that I was able to find you. I remember you were telling me about some folks that inspired you, like you did to me, and we brought up Susan. Could you talk about her a little bit more?
Oh man, my friend Susan is so cool. Meeting Susan changed my life. Before we even met, she let Big Ron invite me on this trip where I rode. It's funny, she said she was sort of vetting me on Facebook and that my profile picture was me playing ice hockey goalie, looking very serious, and she was like, "She looked too scary. I don't know. I almost didn't want her to come." But yeah, she invited me, and she was just so cool. She was rowing her own cataract that she had driven out from West Virginia on a trailer, and just so competent. She's small. She's, I don't know, 5'4", definitely smaller than I am, and old enough to be my mom. Kind of reminds me of my mom. Just funny, works her ass off in camp, and is really smart. And she has connected me with other friends who have invited me on river trips. We've gotten together and had some other adventures on other rivers. Just this month before last, she had a permit to raft the Tatshenshini Alsek rivers, and Susan is 75 years old. She completely self outfitted this trip, drove two rafts, found a raft for me to row, borrowed from friends in West Virginia. She and a friend drove from West Virginia. They made all of the meals, dehydrated everything, packed everything. You have to arrange charter airplanes to take you out from this trip. It's not like the Grand Canyon where there's really detailed guidebooks, and even if you've never been, you can know a lot about what to expect because there's videos you can watch. This trip, it's kind of in my backyard here in Juneau, but I'd never done it. And it was 11 days for our group and just out there. And there's this 75-year-old, totally competent. I know she's not fearless because in calm moments we sit and talk like, whoa, that was freaking scary. But what a leader. She's been an inspiration. And it's so cool to look at somebody just doing all of the things and showing you kind of what's possible, like something to aspire to. Right now, she's just finishing up a trip to Jordan, like the country of Jordan. She went there by herself, not with a tour group, rented a car, just out exploring. So, yeah, Susan is so cool. Met a couple of other awesome women through rafting. My friend Abby, I met her on the third Grand Canyon trip I did. That trip was maybe has generated the most stories out of all of the trips I've done. Gabby, I'm sure I shared some stories with you on our trip about the trip with the canyoneers.
Yeah.
That was a very canyoneering focused trip, and my friend Susan, my friend Kathleen, and we're not into canyoneering. We were down there for, the whitewater rafting part, but we met Abby. She was there for the canyoneering part. I think the rafting part was way out of her comfort zone, and 5 days later, she's looking out for my friend Kath, whose foot is hurt, and, like, starting to get into the rhythm of the rafting stuff and started to connect. Abby's just so cool. We've gone on to have so many other adventures together, and I was able to teach her some rowing on that trip. It's been so cool to teach new rowers some of the stuff that I've learned. Really, that has been some of the absolutely most rewarding stuff of all of it. And then I won a cancellation permit, and I was thinking when you were talking about that feeling when you won the lottery, I think I got the email telling me I'd won a cancellation permit, and I gasped so loudly, I scared everyone in the cubicles around me who came looking to see what was wrong. Like, no, 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 this is good. And I invited Abby to come and be in charge of a raft and row her own raft. She was in the same position I had recently been, where just thinking, wait, I can't do that. I was like, yeah, I think you can. Good. She's getting ready to go in a couple weeks and captaining a raft for probably the fifth time. The other person that was just so cool to do the canyon with was my cousin, Yana. She was in college trying to figure some stuff out, had had some changes in her life plan. She'd injured her knee. She couldn't really figure skate competitively anymore. That had been a real passion of hers. And I was on a trip where there was room for a passenger from Phantom Down. And I thought, well, who do I know who's adventurous and who would really benefit from a trip like this? Because these trips, they can really change your life. And so I was like, all right, I'm inviting my cousin, 19, 20 years old. So she came in at Phantom Ranch, joined the trip, had never really been rafting before, and she was into it. She just like
Hmm.
lit up down there. She ended up going back to school and she started teaching rowing and rafting at her college's outdoor club. She changed her major, is an ecologist now. And yeah, I taught her how to row, and then I was able to get her on another trip where she was in charge of a raft the whole way down the Grand Canyon. And so that's just something that feels so good. The river has given so much to me, and to be able to help other people experience and pass it on, it's the best.
It's cool to think of you starting out, like you said, you had experience rowing crew, but being completely new to this kind of experience, and now you're bringing other people on and passing the baton. So I know on our trip, at least, there was predominantly men on the trip. There was
That trip,
just
yes.
three of us, three women.
Yeah.
You, me, and Denise. How has it been on your trips in terms of that kind of balance, and how do you feel like it can change the dynamics of the trip?
I have had some interesting experiences down there. The same kind of stuff that you probably would encounter as a woman in any industry at all, where people assume that you don't know what you're doing, or they look to the men around you and you're sitting there kind of like, well, actually, I have the most experience in this group. It's hard to say what's just sexism and what's like a personality of somebody who's there to
Right,
micromanage or
right.
just believes that he was, God's gift to rafting and should therefore be in charge and deferred to and be the lead boat in every rapid. I think that it definitely depends on the trip. 2 of the 14 trips have been majority women. I think our trip where it was just the 3 of us, Brent and Jacob were great. I felt very respected and I learned a lot. It was really awesome to be able to learn from Brent, who had done so much backpacking down there, and he
Mhm.
brought us to some camps that I never would have thought to check out just because the guidebook said this is a small brushy camp, and then he had the insider info from backpacking. But back to the
Yeah, he
dynamic,
was a wealth of knowledge.
man, he was great. I really did enjoy being with Brent and Denise. I still feel bad. She hopped into my raft last second at Upset Rapid because she thought I was going to play it as safe as possible. We came so close to flipping. I think that's my new nemesis rapid, other than lava. It is interesting, I think, that a lot of the women I've met and rode with in this canyon, we do have a thing where you feel like you're representing all women when you're at the oars. And so if you do make a mistake, it feels extra just disappointing because you feel like people maybe are judging your failure in the context of like, oh, well, women just can't do this.
Mhm.
But maybe it amplifies stuff on the other side too, where when you are successful, it's kind of like not only are you having an awesome line through a rapid, but you can inspire other women by being, living proof like, yeah, yeah, women can do this. It goes from me watching my friend Susan to, me teaching other people. And certainly I remember reading Grand Canyon book, Breaking into the Current. That's all about the first batch of commercial women guides in the Grand Canyon, being inspired by their stories. One trip that I did, my 2020 trip was, I think there were only 4 men and 11 women. And my trip, where it was my permit, we had 6 women and 2 men. And all 3 of the rafts on my trip had women captains, me, Abby, and Susan. And it was a different vibe that did take some of the pressure off, where you didn't feel like, okay, I'm here representing all women. And it was supportive. That's one of the things with the river, like, you have to be in the flow while you're doing it, and for me anyway, like, I can't be thinking about institutional sexism or misogyny, like, as I'm dropping into lava falls, but then if stuff does go wrong afterwards, I'm just like, "Oh, man," and I do sometimes I'll beat myself up more than is reasonable because I feel like, "Oh, man, I'm making every woman rower look bad." Which is irrational, but it's
It's not
there. It's
true,
a thought, and I know I'm not the only woman who has that experience.
but it's interesting to reflect on that and name it, whether or not, how much validity is in that.
Yeah, we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves.
Well, what's the next big adventure?
Yeah, I just got back from doing the Tachincini Alsec, and that was certainly a big adventure, and I don't have any planned yet. I'm not sure what it's gonna be. Looking down the barrel of another Alaskan winter. It's getting dark. I'll have to start dreaming of something soon. Maybe another Grand Canyon trip will come up. Maybe it'll be something else. I did break my streak. I did not do a Grand Canyon trip in 2025 or 2024. So I've had a little bit of a break, and maybe there's something new out there. I'm tempted to do new rivers, but like there's not that many that are that long or that
Mhm.
epic. And so I do keep ending up back in the Grand Canyon. The conditions are always different, the people are always different. I've gotten picky about wanting to go in September, kind of early October is the perfect time of year. And I mean, that's how we met. I wasn't planning to
Mhm.
necessarily do a Grand Canyon, and then I saw your stuff come up in the Grand Canyon river trip participants needed group and thought, "Oh, man, those dates are perfect. I'm gonna send this person a message."
The
And,
rest is history.
the rest is history, but it's different every time. We had really low water, and I found
Mhm.
the rapids at low water were pretty challenging. There were some really steep drop-offs and pour-overs and holes where I thought there would be waves. Getting surfed in lava was not something was expecting at all. Yeah, it's different every single time, and so I
You
think
never bathe in the same river twice. Even if you're going back to the same place, you can go the rest of your life and it will be different every single time. Well,
Well, are you still playing the lottery? I guess you have some new responsibilities. It might be a while before you go back, probably.
yeah, I mean, we definitely want to go back. The logistics of having a 9-month-old, we might have to wait a little bit. Yep,
Yeah, there are little kids that do that trip. I think you got to get a kid who's comfortable camping and swimming, who's not afraid of the water, and who can be cold and hot and wet and dirty and not freak out. It's not for every kid or every adult for that matter. Yeah, what do you think?
true.
Maybe 12 years from now gives
Yeah,
you time
or
for
or a
lots of
little
push-ups.
earlier
Yeah,
if he wants to stay with, grandma for a couple weeks. Well, it's been so good to chat with you, and thank you for taking the time to do this and just tell
definitely.
me more about your story and how you ended up being such a badass and inspiring other women.
It was so cool to get to do the Grand Canyon with you, Gabby, and then we got to
Yeah,
connect again in Alaska. I hope to see you back in Alaska sometime soon. I don't know,
that was
maybe
so
this summer.
great.
It was totally great.
Yes, thank you
So
for having me, and we will be back for sure, and who knows what
perfect.
other adventures await. Thank you so much for listening to Women in Wild Places and for spending this time with us. If this episode excited you, I'd love to stay connected. You can join our community over on Substack at womeninwildplaces.substack.com and follow along on our Instagram at Women in Wild Places for clips, stories, and behind the scenes from trail to river. And if you have a story, lesson, or moment from your own wild places that you'd like to share, send a note to womeninwildplaces@gmail.com with Trail Dispatch as the subject line. I'd love to feature your voice in a future episode. Thanks, and see you out there.